Today, I'm interviewing Andy Vasquez of NJ Advanced Media. Andy has been covering the Jets for about a decade now, and I'm really interested to get his opinion about the free agency period and everything leading up into the draft. Let's get into it. Andy Vasquez of NJ Advanced Media, thanks so much for joining the show.
Thanks for having me.
I know you did a lot of Twitter Spaces, but this is the first time on your podcast, so I really appreciate it. And I kind of just want to dive right into it. There's a whole lot to go over. And I kind of want to start with, the new coaching staff, the new front office. What has been your general reaction to Glenn and Muji, and how are they different from Saleh and Douglas?
Yeah, it's hard to tell just because we've really only interacted with them twice at the opening press conference and then at the combine. And I mean, they've been hands off, or that's maybe not the best word, but with us, limited in terms of what they're willing to say and how available they are to us. And that's interesting, and obviously a change of pace from what we saw in the last regime. I mean, I worry about stuff like that because why are they worried about the media? Why are they worried about the perception? I mean, I feel like it's pretty simple. A lot of people want to say we're a reason why things are dysfunctional here. I believe we just write about what happens, and it's a mess. And if they play well and win, there's going to be more positive stories than they know what to do with. I don't think it's like the media is giving them a raw deal. There were times last year when I think reporters held back on Rodgers, held back on, what it could have been like with Ulbrich, because that was obviously a difficult situation. And I think, most of everything that was reported, the team never, when they tried to refute it, like when Woody tried to refute it, he wouldn't get into specifics, stuff like that. So, I mean, I don't like the whole, to me, I worry about the media blame game type thing. And I think there's some of that. It's early though. So like, we just haven't had a lot of time to deal with them, but I think that's something that's interesting and a little weird, but I like what they're doing in free agency. Maybe even if I don't agree with all of it, I like that it's different. I think that they've been going to the same well for so long. It hasn't worked. This is going to be completely different. I think the expectation game is going to be much different next year too, because there's not going to be a lot expected out of them because it's hard to see where they got better. But I mean, they had a talented team last year and underachieved. And if they have good coaching and good roster building and get the right personalities together, maybe the team could be less talented but more successful. I think kind of got to see how it looks roster-wise after the draft and what it looks like with these guys coaching and leading them.
I really hate this win now rhetoric that I keep hearing from Muji and Glenn. When you look at these free agency contracts, I mean, outside of Brandon Stevens and Justin Fields and Sherwood, who they brought back, everyone else is on a 1-year deal, as far as I can tell. So whether they want to say it or not, it's a rebuild year with a bridge quarterback, and a lot of Jet fans are impatient, but I get it, and I'm fine with it personally. So how do you feel about this win now rhetoric that they keep putting out there as opposed to what they're actually doing in free agency?
Yeah, it's tricky because you can't say that we're just going to tear it down to the studs and suck to a fan base that has dealt with what this fan base has dealt with for the last 15 years. And you can't really say it in the locker room. I mean, you saw some of the reactions when Rodgers left. So they're in a tough spot. I think they have to make the right decisions. But, I do think, you can't really say what you said at the combine. You can't say what you said in those opening press conferences. And then, I thought they made a really good signing at quarterback. And then there's literally nowhere else on the roster where you could be like, oh, this fixed it, or I feel good about this position, including, losing a veteran right tackle to your rival in almost like a repeat of what happened 3 years ago when he went to the Ravens on a cheap contract. And this guy just played on one leg and was effective. So, I mean, I don't get some of the stuff. And I think they're in a tough spot, though, because there is so much Um, it's tough here, man. It's tough, like because of the history, the lack of offensive success. I mean, everything that's gone wrong in the last 5 years. So, or not 5 years, but especially offensively the last 5 years. I
Yeah.
think they're in a tough spot where they have to, they do have to be competitive, but I think like they're viewing it as a different kind of competitive. I think they can be competitive, and I'm not willing to rule that out. But yeah, it's going to be tough.
You know, I don't think I agree with you. I don't think they need to really like rip it down to the studs, because there are some blue chip players here. Sauce, Brees. We don't know what JJ's going to be. AVT, Titman, Garrett. With what happened with Stingley um, yesterday, I believe it was, or 2 days ago, do you think that they try and lock up at least Sauce and Garrett a little quicker than you would say like a normal rookie timeline would be? Because from what I can tell, the price is just going to go up for these two guys.
Yeah, just to real quick on the last point, like the best way I could put it, I've been thinking this for like the last week. Um, you can't like have the guy who played 10 snaps for the Patriots last year, week one, and then got benched and left the team, be your week one starting right tackle and act like you tried to fix it. That's all I'm saying. Like
Right.
that's not a win now move. So I mean that's not going to fly. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. And with the Sauce and Garrett thing, this is a very interesting time because you're seeing these extensions come flying. And I would have said like even a month ago or 2 months ago, like these guys aren't in leverage situations. I mean, neither one of them are coming off the best year of their career. Receivers typically don't get extended after 3 years. And then with Sauce, I mean, I think the last receiver got extended after 3 years was St. Brown with the Lions, and his numbers were much better than Garrett's. And I'm not saying Garrett isn't on his level. I'm just saying for various reasons, the production hasn't been there. And then Sauce is coming off, the worst year of his career, but also has these two historic, like unprecedented years. So I still didn't think it would be like the timing is right, and I didn't see either of those guys like demanding it. But now I mean, I think it is in the Jets' best interest. Like you're seeing these prices. I mean, the cornerback top salary per year has gone up 10 million basically in the last 9 months. So um, I mean, and it's only going to get higher. And Sauce is going to command more than Stingley did, even though Stingley just had a better year. So I think, especially with the Sauce one, it's something that they have to do as soon as possible. And with Garrett too, I think they will because they just don't have any other options at that position.
I like what they did at quarterback. I like them bringing in Justin Fields because I see him as a lottery ticket. If he plays well and he's able to clean up some things, if he's able to play at the level that he did for those 6 games with the Steelers, you may have something, and maybe you have your quarterback. Maybe he could be the next Darnold, Baker Mayfield, who has kind of that resurgence later in his career. And if he doesn't work out, then drafting a quarterback in the 26th draft, which is, I guess, kind of plan A, is still in effect. So I like the potential upside, and I don't think, especially with the way the contract's written up, it's not going to hurt them going forward. So what do you think of the whole Justin Fields signing?
I agree with everything you said about the contract. I don't think they paid too much. I don't think it's, even if he's terrible this year, it's something that they can't extricate themselves from. And I think, yes, it is a lottery ticket. And it's also a really interesting lottery ticket and a really interesting opportunity for this new offensive staff because he did have that success in Pittsburgh and showed that he can take better care of the ball and win games. But they really kind of like kept him restrained in terms of he
Yeah.
didn't take a lot of risks. He didn't run very much. And he's really like he put together the best running season for a quarterback in history to that point. So uh, I think that potential and being able to let him kind of go out there and take some risks could make him very exciting. And also, there is that upside that's not typical for a guy at this stage of his career because he's showing signs of putting it all together without maybe the most dynamic and, well, not maybe, definitely the most dynamic and interesting, and the part of his game that differentiates him and makes him a guy who can carry an offense on his own. And it's going to be good for receivers too. It's going to be good, for those guys. I think more that year with him, I think had like 1,400 yards. It's going to be like good for Garrett Wilson to be able to make plays in space, and they just need to find somebody else so that the defense isn't locked in on Garrett every time. But yeah, I think there's a bunch of upside, and like you said, that no matter how it goes, I mean, it's going to be a bigger problem if it goes well, because then they have to figure out, do they extend them after 1 year? But that's a good problem to have, and it doesn't take away. I mean, I think it takes away like taking a quarterback early in this draft, but I don't think it takes away the possibility of going after a quarterback in this draft too. And I think they should be open to that.
What is the biggest weakness on the roster right now? You give me yours, and then I'll give you mine.
Man, I mean, the wide receiver room. I mean, tight end. The wide receiver room outside of Garrett, but they have Garrett. I mean,
Do you think they
defensive
keep Lazard?
tackle outside of Quinnen. Pardon?
Do you think they keep Lazard?
No. I mean, I can't
No.
see. Well, Lazard's not coming back unless he takes a pay cut, and I don't think Lazard has the awareness to take. It'd be a big pay cut, and I think he'll think he can get money somewhere else. So no, I don't think that's going to happen. And I mean, unless they bring him back at that number, which I would be mystified. That would make no sense to me. But and I just, man, it's like, you see the defensive tackle position right now with Quinnen. There's nothing else there.
Yeah,
You could look at safety and be like, what's there as well?
that's
I
where I
mean,
was going to go.
tight
I
end
was
is
going to say
probably the
safety.
barest position as of this moment, but like these depth issues are crazy. Like it's kind of crazy that a team that has this much, you know, talent in certain spots has some of these depth issues. Like safety, yeah, you're right. There's safety or tight end are the two barest, and then I think it really affects what Garrett Wilson and Quinnen can do when they're not going to be playing next to guys who have proven themselves as capable, rotational players even.
I Joe Douglas really seemed like a good guy, but it was pretty evident, I think, towards the end of his tenure that he knew his job was on the line. Kind of pushed all the chips to the middle of the table and said, kind of, the hell with the roster after 2024. So, and that's unfortunately the situation that we're in. That's the situation a lot of NFL teams end up in when there's a big transfer of power in the front office. So, are there any signings that surprised you? I know a lot of these guys that they brought in were kind of just guys, kind of filler pieces. But is there anyone out there that did surprise you when they signed them?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to be negative, but it's not like there's a ton out. I was surprised by
Mm,
Shepard. I mean, I just don't understand the money. Um, I don't understand, with DJ Reed, um, has making what, 16 million a year in Detroit, and they gave
yeah,
him 12 or 13. I mean, and the guarantees aren't that far off either. So, I mean, I understand, Glenn and Wilkes need big cornerbacks who can tackle out there, and maybe they thought their money would go a longer way with this upside, and they can get out of the deal after. I mean, really, they kind of have to keep him for 2 years. I can't remember how that breaks down, but yeah, I was surprised by that, and I still don't really get it. Um, I just wonder who they were bidding against, and I
mm,
I don't I just yeah, I have a hard time with that. But everything else, like, I mean, it really does make sense to make these gambles on on guys who are young and have some talent and experience, and that they can put it all together. I don't have a problem with that. I just think you also do need to, especially at the like positions like defensive tackle and receiver, you're going to have to bring in, and maybe receiver's a different story. Maybe they go at the top of the draft, but now, I mean, they've got a tackle at the top of the draft. They need to look at receiver. Um, you could argue safety, defensive tackle. So uh, there's a lot of work to do in the draft. So I think you have a realistic assessment of where this team is at, and it's going to be an uphill battle next year. And it's frustrating too because you see that there is a lot of talent on the roster, but it's like you said, the way things ended and the commitment they made to Rodgers kind of put them in this weird spot now.
I don't like what they did with Rodgers' contract. If it was me, I would have cut him immediately and just ate the money in 1 year.
Yep.
I don't like the idea of splitting the money across 2 years. I guess I don't see the understanding of it, especially with the contracts that you're seeing them sign right now, these 1 year deals. And yeah, I worry about that 35 million in 2026 when you're gonna have some fifth year options coming up that you have to make decisions on. So I do worry about that a little bit. What do you think about how the way they cut ties with Rogers?
I think it was like I understand why they moved on. Um, like I think the money that they would have had to pay in next year would have been more than they are, and
Mhm.
2027. I can't remember now. It's been however many weeks since
Yeah,
they made that
it was a lot.
decision. But yeah, it was an extra 35 million flowing onto this year, and then it goes from there. So I mean I get it from that standpoint, but like everything they're doing goes back to our other conversation too. If they're not extending these guys, then what are they doing with this money? Like, why
Right.
did they? It makes no sense not to take it right now. Just take. They have plenty of cap space. They have, even if they were to use it all, um, after doing that, they could just cut Lazard and pay for almost the entire rookie class. So, it's I don't really understand what they're doing unless they are going to extend. But even that should bring down the cap hits for this year. So, yeah, I would have
Mm.
liked to have seen them, take it now and really be able to kind of go all in. I don't really understand the logic behind that. I know it's like the cap will go up next year. It's easy to restructure contracts. They can extend guys and lower their cap hit for next year. And if they carry a bunch of this space into next year, it's usable then too. But I still, yeah, I would have just. Why would you want to like keep seeing that money on the books? And what if you are in a situation where you can make a couple moves, um, you know, big money moves or a big trade or something, and you need the cap space? Why would you put yourself in in the position where this could come back to bite you in any way? So yeah, I
Yeah.
don't get it, especially given the way they've treated this offseason.
What do you think they do at 7? Because from my perspective, there's so many holes on the team that as long as they don't take a quarterback, they're going to get someone who's going to help one way or another. It just really depends on what position they want to shore up first. So I think it's Tyler Warren, um, but only if Graham doesn't fall to them. I don't think they're going to go with a tackle. So what do you see happening?
I'm so you cut out. You said I heard you say I think it's Tyler Warren, and then I didn't hear your next until you just said it came on at the end. I'm sorry.
I think it's going to be Tyler Warren, but only if Graham doesn't fall to them. And I don't think they're taking Membu one way or another. I think he's a great player, but I think maybe they have enough strength across the offensive line as a whole where maybe they can get away with someone else at right tackle. I think it's going to be Warren or Graham depending on who's there. What do you think?
Yeah, I haven't dug in as deep yet because of free agency. Um,
Yeah.
but I mean, I'm with you. I don't think they can take a quarter. If they take a quarterback, what are we doing? Um,
Yeah.
I think anything else is on the table. I think it's gonna be. I have a feeling it's gonna be a defensive tackle, um, or wide receiver. And I don't. It's hard to really know how it's all gonna kind of fall. But I think they're gonna end up with a defensive tackle. Again, I'm sorry I haven't dived as deeply into this as you have yet because it's just we go straight from free agency. This is usually when I start looking in. So I don't
Yep.
have the prospects on the top of my head, so I'm not going to pretend that I do. But I think defensive tackle, or I mean, if one of the receivers is up there, I think it could happen. But I don't think it's going to be a quarterback, and I hope it's not. Otherwise, it's going to be a long few
That would be
years
the
with
ultimate
regime.
Jet thing to do. The
Yeah,
ultimate Jet thing to do was that they take Jackson Dart at 7, and we're all sitting there like, my worst fear is that Sanders is sitting there.
yeah, that's what I
Like,
was. I mean,
if for some reason the Browns are like, nah, we're good, and he falls all the way down to us, I'm gonna be like, here it comes.
yeah, and I mean, it wouldn't go well for anybody because it would make it impossible for Fields. It would make it impossible for Sanders. I mean, there would be a real quarterback competition, which we haven't seen the last couple times. But yeah, I mean, it would be a very very weird and dysfunctional thing. I think like them trading down, given how many needs they have, like how many different
Mhm.
things they have to fill, is not out of the realm of possibility. But that's going to depend on, does like Dart climb the board, and something like that happen where, or if maybe Sanders falls and another team wants to come up and get him. I think that is a real possibility, and it could make the most sense because they do. I mean, they need to get a couple like starting caliber players out of this. Uh, if they want to be competitive this year, and that's not the way you should be thinking, but um, also, you should expect your draft class to be more like 2002 than every other draft class in the last 10 years. At least get a couple guys out of there that can contribute and contribute right away. So um, I wouldn't be surprised if they trade down. But yeah, I think the Field signing does take trading up to get a guy like Ward. Like, I think that's off the table now, and probably for the best.
Andy, thanks for hanging out. Where can people find you?
I'm on X sometimes. I've taken a little bit of a social
Sometimes.
media hiatus just for my sanity. Um, but you can find me on nj.com/jets. I have an Instagram at by Andy Vasquez. And yeah, I like to come on podcasts and spaces, and always willing to share my opinions, usually a little bit more coherently than today. But um, yeah, I haven't been sleeping well, so that's what you get at the end of free agency. Sleep schedule's all messed up. Had the girlfriend homesick last week, and yeah, I'm a zombie. So thank you for sitting through all this, and hopefully I made some sense, and hopefully we can come back and do this again when I'm a little bit better rested.
Well, I would like to have you on again after the draft, which I don't
Yeah,
think you're going to have any rest then because you'll
no,
be
I'll
doing
have
all the
more
draft
compared to
stuff.
this.
So,
Yeah, no, that's all right in front of you. You know when the draft is.
yeah,
It's the is somebody gonna get signed at 1 a.m.? That messes with
yeah,
me. So,
yeah.
and
Awesome. Well, again,
living with my girlfriend for the first year during free agency is also
oh boy,
a
that's
learning
fun.
experience. Yeah. So, but good, all good. If she sees this, she knows that.
Cool. All right. Well, again, thanks for hanging out, guys. Give us a like and a subscribe. We got a lot more interviews coming up. And again, Andy, thanks. We'll have you on again after the draft.
Thanks, Pat. Appreciate you.